Hi, it's Sean, and I'm just about to impress you with my memory. About a month ago, we were in Lisbon in a hotel called Torrell Palace. Our flight arrived at 10:30 p.m., and by the time we got to the hotel, it was closing in on midnight. But there was Philip to meet us at the door, and he took us to our room. Unfortunately, they had left the air conditioning on at 16 degrees centigrade. That's pretty cold. And from the looks of it, it had been on since the afternoon. We were really uncomfortable, so at about 1 a.m., I went downstairs, and there was somebody new, somebody called Fabian. Fabian said he could take us to the villa, and we could spend the night there. The next morning, we were upgraded. Bertrand took us to our room. He was sitting right next to Melissa. That's the way she said her name. At breakfast, we were served by Prithika, who was from India, Pinky from Nepal, and Sonia from Cape Verde. The name of the restaurant manager? Andre. The bellboy at the gate? That's Dellington. And I'll stop now. The point is, you can't tell if I have all of these names right in front of me. You can't even ratify if these names are correct. They are, but that's not the point. Well, what is the point of today's episode? It's just that most of us have an exceptional memory. We might say things like, we're not good with names. But if you stay with me for a few minutes, I'll prove that you're exceptional with names. Your memory is better than you think it is. In fact, you've been putting yourself down. So let's go, shall we? I'm going to read the names of a few people and see if you recognize them. If not, your memory might not be so good. You might be terrible with names. Albert Einstein, Madame Curie, William Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Winston Churchill, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Michael Jackson, the Beatles, Pablo Picasso, Vincent van Gogh, Jane Austen, Mark Twain, Serena Williams. Oops, those are 20 names that you remember. Let's take some more names. New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Russia, China, Japan, India, Australia, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, North Korea. Are you having any problems yet? You even remember people that don't exist. Sherlock Holmes, Harry Potter, Frodo Baggins, Luke Skywalker, Wonder Woman, Tony Stark, and Bond, James Bond. You're likely to remember the names of all your family members, your friends, your teacher from high school. You also know the name of thousands of objects. Book, booklet, notepad, computer, headphones, chair. And if you speak several languages, then you know those objects in 4 or 5 or 6 different languages. Chair would be chaise. In Spanish, it would be silla or sija. In Hindi, it would be kursi or kurchi in Marathi. And then sedya. And you know which language that is if you speak the language. It's a myth that you are hopeless at remembering names. So why don't we remember names? We don't pay attention. It's that simple. We remember all the names that are important to us in some way, are relevant, are interesting, and then we forget all the rest. But why is this information so important to you? It is important because it's a factor of confidence. When we go through life, there are people that are supremely confident. And there are lots of reasons for it. But one of the things that bring us down on a consistent basis is when we say things that aren't true. We don't have a terrible memory. If you were to get on ChatGPT today and ask it to generate 1,000 names of important places, people, objects, you'd probably get a perfect score. I mean, if we were terrible at remembering names, then we should get a big fat 0, but we don't. We get a perfect score. And when we realize we've been fooling ourselves for so long, then logically we should question what are the other things that we have in our heads that are holding us back? Because these myths are plainly silly. And the more you hear other people saying exactly the same thing, the more it gets reinforced. Your memory is really good. In most cases, it's just a lack of attention. But even when you're thinking about things that happened in the last year, the last 5 years or 10 years, maybe even the last 30 years, you can remember all of it in great detail. What your brain is doing is acting as a volume regulator. If the information is important but not valid right now, not crucial right now, it just turns down the volume. If it's important to you right now, it turns it up. For instance, when we go on holiday, we have to write lists of what we need to do when we get back. Why? Because we forget pretty much everything. We come back from holiday and our brain has been focused on having breakfast, waking up, doing nothing. The volume related to work, to activity, has been turned down to nothing. So we don't remember the things we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. That's not because our memory is bad. That's just because of a volume control. And you know this to be true because you can listen to a song that you heard 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and the first time you listen to it after a long time, some of those lyrics seem to slip your mind. But once you listen to the same song a second time or a third time, they're all back. The same thing happens with any kind of memory you hold of the past. Somebody can fill in all the little details, and then it's all back, like it never went away. If you were writing a memoir, for instance, you would not remember almost anything. But as you start chipping away at the memories, more and more come to mind. As you start reading memoirs of other people, like I was reading about Stanley Tucci and Trevor Noah, and their stories reminded me of my past. Those memories haven't gone. They're just buried at low volume, and now they're back. Which isn't to say that all memory is exactly correct. The moment you bring up a memory and some other information is added to the memory, you can corrupt that memory. Which is why when you're with a friend or with your partner and you're telling a story and someone says, no, that's not the way it happened, that's because something corrupted that memory. And as you went on telling that story, it seems to take a life of its own. But that's okay. The reality is that our memories are very good. So let's just summarize this podcast. The first point is that almost every one of us is very good with names. Not just hundreds, but probably tens of thousands of names. And if you speak multiple languages, probably 50,000 names, 100,000 names, who knows? When we think of the past, it's not like our memory has been erased in some way. It's just a volume control. If your brain had every memory at full volume, I think that would be messy, frustrating even. And finally, memory is corruptible. Every time you bring up a memory and some other information is added to it, well, that memory could be warped. But that doesn't always have to happen. And if you write things down, well, you'll remember it as it happened, or at least as you perceived it at that point in time. And why is all of this important? It's important because it gives you confidence. When you walk around saying, I remember names, I remember things, you start to build a nice little database in your head. And people like you because you remember their names and you remember the things that they said. It makes a difference in your life. Confidence is the most abstract and yet one of the most crucial elements of your life. Stop putting yourself down. You're really good. You're better than what you think you are. And plus, you have a good memory. But I still had to do a summary, just in case you forgot. That's it from me. I'll say bye for now. But wait, let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. One of the things that people want to do on a regular basis is create an information product. However, there are already tens of millions of information products out there, and people are threatening to have ChatGPT write information products for themselves. What's the difference between a good information product and an average one? And that is that the client gets to the end. And this is crucial because when a client consumes the product completely, they come back for more. When people ask us, how do you run Psychotactics? The answer is clients come back repeatedly. They come back repeatedly for meetups, for courses, for workshops. They buy several books, several products. And the reason is that they get to the end of one, they're able to implement it, and therefore they get value, which is why they come back. If you're able to create an info product that clients consume, it means that it wasn't just informative, but entertaining, and it was structured in a way that was amazing. That course on information products will be available on the 31st of August, but you have to be on the list. So go to psychotactics.com/infogoodies, and what you'll get are goodies. You can test them out, see how they are for you, and judge for yourself. And if you liked today's episode on memory, you'll probably like Suddenly Talented, which is a book on another myth, which is that we are born with gifts. We are somehow talented in some way. We have an affinity to do this or that. Go to psychotactics.com/talent, and I think you'll be slightly surprised. That's it from me at Psychotactics. Bye for now. Still listening? If you've been at Psychotactics for a while, you probably know that I keep a diary. In fact, I have two diaries. One is a cartoon diary, and every day I draw in it after breakfast. So I finish breakfast and sit down for a little while, do a little sketch, and then I use watercolors to draw in that diary. But I also keep a photograph text-based diary in a program called Day One, and I've been keeping this record since 2012. I dictate what's happened on that day, and I can keep up to 30 photos. So it's a very detailed piece of information on my life. One day, two members of my family and Renuka and I went out to dinner. We had pizza, and the pizza wasn't so good. So we mentioned it to the manager, and he said that he'd give us a voucher and we could come back another time. A few months passed, and we were talking about that incident one day, and we mentioned Restaurant A, where we had gone to eat the pizza. The thing is, all of us remembered eating the pizza at this restaurant, but when I checked the diary, the four of us were wrong. Our memory was corrupted. We'd gone to a completely different restaurant. And when I pulled up the information and mentioned it to everybody, they go, yeah, that's right. It wasn't Restaurant A. It was Restaurant B that we were at. So there you go. Memory is corruptible, but it's also pretty amazing. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.